And I think we're live. Brad, welcome to the show. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm good, man. You know, people are super panicking. I made a video earlier today, a couple hours ago, telling people, listen, it's going to be all right. And you also made a video, I think it was like 2 hours ago, telling your experience and perspective, which I really enjoyed. And I wouldn't mind
Thanks,
you kind of
man.
sharing that with the audience. Cause like, let's cut to the chase. What's going on? We have the coronavirus, which was a Black Swan event that's yet to be determined, which spread around the world. Governments react to this. Fear sets in. Obviously, with fear, you have restrictions. Restrictions affects the market, and now we see the stock market crashing, which is directly tied to everything. Crypto is no different. People say Bitcoin was an uncorrelated asset, but for now we see it's a core. For now, it's a correlated asset. It's being a bloodbath. People are, I guess, fearful. People are in a scarcity mindset. People are trying to figure out what to do. So I will kind of put this over to you because you had a really, really good fucking summary on Facebook earlier, wrapping up your thoughts around this.
Yeah, well, what I said was more to do from the perspective of like the regular person that's just looking at this in North America, and they're not really feeling why this is such a panic.
Yep.
They're not really understanding, like, um they don't feel it. It's not impacting their lives like in Italy or Iran or China or one of these places where they're actually quarantined in their homes, and if someone gets sick, they're in an ICU
Yep.
beds shortage situation. So it's like really scary. Most of what we've seen here from in the West is like panicking, fear mongering headlines from the mainstream news, and then it kind of created this crazy complacency and further diverse opinions between both sides of the political spectrum, because this got political because I've been following this since the end of January, because my wife is immune compromised, so I have to pay attention to this stuff because she's a high risk category. If she gets this, it's like high chance of mortality for her. So I'm not taking any chances with this shit. So I've
Yeah,
been paying
for sure, man.
attention. Yeah, I've been paying attention to this since the end of January, and I saw how this was going to spread in Canada and the US if we didn't take action. And I tried to tell people for about a month, but you started to see the mainstream news come on and say, like, the right side, the Fox News, they were kind of like reporting it, but mostly going with what Trump was saying, which was like just the flu. But then there was also coverage from the right that was just like obsessive, like the news does. They fearmonger. So there was
Mhm.
excessive fearmongering, which caused people that were like politically right to be confused, I guess, and they were thinking, "Oh, this must just be the flu. Trump's handling it. We're going to be fine." But then the people on the left, CNN and MSNBC and those guys, man, it's just been like hammering it about it's been a political thing. It's been like Trump mishandled this, but also fear mongering. So like both sides were fear mongering, but Trump is up there, and the Canadian officials too up there, saying this is just no big deal. We got it under control. Just wash your hands and all that stuff. And it created this narrative of complacency and division between the regular person, because if you're politically motivated at all, you're going to be taken aside. And I saw this weird thing happening where people in my circle that are like really smart, and they're typically deep thinkers on stuff, they would start to call me out for fear mongering and talking about this, and saying that, like, why you spreading fear. And I'm just like, this is not a political thing. This is not like left versus right. This is not Trump versus Biden or whoever. This is a global pandemic. Like, this is not political.
Yeah.
So the culture of complacency and distrust of both sides and distrust of the media created this weird situation where people on the left that are usually like calling out everything Donald Trump said they were parroting Donald Trump's message of this is just the flu, bro. Like, what are you worried about? And that was so weird to see. That's the first time I've seen that in years, where the guys on the hard left are just repeating this same lie that Donald Trump was repeating, which was, this is no big deal. We got this under control. So I think, for one, this is like the beginning of the end of the real impact of the distrust of media, because the information has been so poorly disseminated. It's been bad information by the news and bad handling of this by the CDC and our public health authorities and our leaders. And there's been things in the past that they've handled wrong, and they try to manipulate the narrative. What they're trying to do here is not cause a panic. They're trying to make it so that they can, because they don't have the resources. Our hospital systems are not in the proper shape to be able to handle a coronavirus outbreak. Our beds are nearly at capacity already, and we don't have the manufacturing capabilities that China has to be able to just make new hospitals in 7 days and like make all these oxygen machines and ICU beds and stuff. That's what we get it from China.
Well, mind you, those hospitals are falling apart and crumbling.
In China or here?
Yeah, no, in China.
The ones that they built quickly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I did like the thing that I did notice was it felt almost like there was a fake news coming out of China that, oh, we got this under control. But the longer it goes, the more it seems like they actually did get it under control. And the way that I think they got it under control was by building all these shitty hospitals, but building them regardless, and doing really strict quarantines and social distancing and stuff.
Bro, they welded people in fucking apartment buildings, man. You couldn't leave.
Yeah, that's pretty strict.
This is like back in the day of like old school Maoist type of regime.
Yeah, and that's like that's one example of, to the extreme, how you can stop a pandemic like this. You can lock people in their apartment buildings and just let them die in their apartments. Like, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it was how the United States and Canada was doing it up until today, basically, which was like not shut down the flights, allow people to fly here from Italy and Iran, and like allow people to go about their day thinking this is no big deal, and just wash your hands, like saying masks don't help you, don't buy masks. And what they were really doing was trying not to cause a financial panic, because we don't have the resources to handle a China situation, both hospital beds and monetarily. Like, we can't build hospitals as quick as they did. And even if they're crappy falling down, it's a place to isolate people and put them when they get coronavirus, to separate them from everybody else. So there was that. And then on the other side, the economic side of it, like, our stock market has been overvalued for at least 2 years.
Too long. Oh, fuck. Well, longer than that, man. Like, if I'm pulling it up right now, like, you want the Dow index?
Yeah, let's give it.
Watch this. The Dow index. Look at this.
I'm drinking some liposomal vitamin C here, mixed with some sports drink.
We've been
tastes gross.
Since the quantitative easing of 08 and 09, we've been on an exponential rip. Like, forget about bull market. There's just another word for that. Like, this is a steroid market. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, can I even pull it up? Can I people can see this?
So just to quickly give an example of like how bad we went, like how bad this crash that just happened in the last 2 weeks is. This is the worst crash since 9/11, and even longer. Now, today in the TSX, it's been the worst crash since the 1940s. So our Toronto Stock Exchange markets haven't seen this in nearly 100 years. Like, this is a big generational market crash event, but we're still only at the levels that we were at like a year and a half ago.
Exactly.
So it just shows you how inflated and pumped our markets were, and it was juiced because of the establishment, both sides of the political party, working with corporatists and elite bankers and central banks to increase the wealth disparity, and rich get richer, poor get poorer, and more in debt. And they did that with quantitative easing and cheaper taxes for both the rich and the poor, but obviously the cheaper taxes for the poor doesn't affect it as as much as the cheaper taxes for the rich. So the rich get more of the wealth. And they also have the Cantillon effect, right, where they print the money and they give it to the rich banks and stuff first, and they get the spending power and the value. And then stock buybacks,
which shows you see this.
Oh, okay, look at that. Yeah,
look at that. So look at this. So the .com 90s right here, right? There's a little. Looks like and here's the 08 crisis.
Oh, we're in there now.
Well, look at the QE from here.
Yeah, they spent their way out of it.
Jesus Christ, man. And now you're right. So we dropped back to how many points we're at? We're at 20,000? Something like that. I guess this is the most artificial chart possible.
It's crazy, but like I can understand from the perspective of the health officials and the leadership in one way. Like, our markets are so precarious, our debt is so high, there's no clean balance sheets anymore. They're at like $1 trillion deficit spending already in the US, and we're headed there, like not that level, but proportionally in Canada. Every major country is doing it. Negative interest rates are coming. So the stocks and the equities markets were in a real precarious situation already. And so they needed to rather than put public health first, they had to create an environment that signaled to the stock market and to the traders that things were going to be okay. We were going to handle this. And that signaled to the public that it's just the flu. What's the point of freaking out? Everybody's fear mongering. And that caused a lot of division and misinformation to get spread. And I thought that it was going to cause an outbreak here, the same or worse than in China, Iran, Italy, etc. But thankfully, like Ontario today took the proper action and they canceled school for 2 weeks after March break. So 3 weeks total so far. It's probably going to be more than that. And I think it was more so when yesterday Tom Hanks and his wife got diagnosed with coronavirus on vacation in Australia, and the NBA canceled the rest of the season at the same time.
NHL too.
But yeah, that was today. But yesterday when it was like NBA plus Tom Hanks, it was like people in the West all of a sudden realized, wow, this is not just fear-mongering like media. This is a real thing. And we got to get ready for this. And so it's kind of like a vindication for people like me that have been, and you too, have been like talking about this thing for a long time, and people not taking you seriously.
She was like, "Why are you loading up on all the food?" And I got the N95 masks a long time ago, and all that stuff.
Did you get a stash of toilet paper?
That boggles my mind. I have a duvet here. Like, I fucking water my ass.
A bidet.
A bidet.
A duvet.
A duvet.
Your ass on a duvet.
Wipe my ass. That's right. So it boggles.
The feathers are very soft.
Very soft, like a baby's bottom. But it hurts my head when I see people rushing in to get toilet paper. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, I can understand that too. It's hilarious.
Toilet paper?
Yeah, because man, you want to be in a situation where you got to wipe your butt with newspaper or something. Like people.
Oh, you do the Asian style or Eastern European style. You have a vase and you fucking use water on your ass.
It is funny though. It is really weird.
Half the world wipes their ass that way.
Yeah, it's really odd that that people run to toilet paper, but I think it's just like that's
like diapers. If you have a baby, I get. Yeah. Like, I get that. Essentials, like diapers, an essential. Dry foods or frozen foods,
right?
Canned foods, some medical supplies just in case, depending on your like shit that you need, not fucking toilet paper.
Yeah, no, I kind of get it, because it's just a signal that the average person is not like fully comprehending the risks and like making the calculations. So, they think I gotta wipe my butt, so they go get toilet paper, and you don't want to run out of toilet paper if you're around here, so you got to grab some. But yeah, it is crazy how much, you'd think it would be tuna or beans or something like that, but
it's crazy. But look, I found this. Sorry to cut you off. I want to show you this. So we got this interesting. So we got this Irion. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, bro. Irion. I work at the hospital in New York. We actually have more empty beds now because people don't want to come to the ER.
Oh, is that like someone live on your
Yeah,
video
yeah. We
saying
have
that? Oh, that's
chats.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. New York City just declared a state of emergency earlier today. So
Yeah.
it's understandable that if you're in the hospital with like gastroenteritis or something like that, and a state of emergency is just declared, and you just heard that all the sports teams have like suspended, and like all these world leaders that were shaking hands with Donald Trump have now been diagnosed with coronavirus, you're probably going to want to get the hell out of the hospital, right? Because you're
Mm.
thinking like, this is going to outbreak here, and I don't want to be in a hospital with coronavirus people. So that makes sense that people would want to leave the hospital, even if it's like not a good time to leave. So I could see that.
Yeah. And my mom works a sick kid. She said it's still pretty quiet here in Toronto at the
Yeah,
sick
that's
kid.
the thing. Like, thankfully, we're not in a situation that can't be stopped. We're in the situation where they're taking the actions at the right times. If we had
Well,
waited like another week or two, I think it would be
yeah.
too late.
Well, I will give Toronto credit where credit's due, because since we did get hit hard with SARS, and my mom went through SARS as a kids, they wore hazmat for a month straight, like full hazmat suits. They have protocols because of SARS in place, and those protocols have been going on for the last couple of weeks in all the top hospitals downtown. So Mount Sinai, Women's College, Sick Kids Children's Hospital, all those hospitals off of the major section in Toronto.
Yeah. Well, the problem though that Toronto and the rest of Canada has had, that where they don't have credit that's due, is we should have acted quicker to stop flights from infected zones. If I'm just a dude in my basement and I'm following this news and I can see what's coming, then obviously these people that are getting paid multiple six figures, sometimes seven figure salaries to be in charge of public health should
Yeah.
be fully aware of the risks of allowing people to come in from infected countries, instead of feeling like, oh well, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to appear that I'm judging someone for bringing coronavirus here. That's the mentality that the Canadian health or the Canadian leadership has had so far. But now that Justin Trudeau is in self quarantine and his wife is being tested for coronavirus, and all the NBA and NHL and MLB teams and all this, now that it's starting to affect our lives in a way that it's not really physically or economically impacting us yet, but now we're aware as a
It is.
culture that this is more than just a flu.
It is economically. No, if you don't have NHL, look how many people lose a job. So
Yeah,
servers,
but that's like second order effects, right? That's going to be
of
like
course
in a
it is.
month, 2 months, something like that. That's when people are really going to actually be hurting. But right now, things are just seeming to be normal. It's not like a terrorist attack happened where all of a sudden you feel the impact. This is like a gradual realization of how serious this is, and it's like the frog boiling in water. Like you don't understand it until it gets worse, and like people who've got themselves in high mortgage, high mortgage situations with low down payments, if housing markets start to drop 30%, that's when people are going to be feeling it. When like you said, if servers don't get to go to work and they can't get their tips and stuff, like, yeah, people are going to stop going out, going eating, things like that. That's going to affect people's lives. But right now, at this moment, what's affecting people is realizing, oh shit, hockey's canceled. And
Yeah.
at least that's impacting us. So now we're taking real measures. And I think the reason why they're taking the measures now is because the economic, like the stock market, just got destroyed. So all the efforts that they were trying to do to prevent people from panicking, it didn't work anyway. So now they're realizing like we're going to have to deal with both the economic effects and the physical, like hospital overrun effects, and having to triage patients and choose between who lives and who dies. Let's just take action right now before it turns into an outbreak. And that's where I can give them credit. And honestly, I was not hopeful that we were going to get through this without an outbreak, without it turning into China, Iran, Italy. But now that we're taking serious precautions and like trying to cancel public events, school is canceled for a few weeks. We're starting to shut down flights. That actually makes me feel a lot better about how this is probably stoppable. We can probably stop this now.
Yeah, I have some other interesting theories, because if you look at how viruses work, they take over your DNA, and this is why HIV is very difficult to get rid of, because it takes over your immune system. So the whole nutshell, the viruses go into your cells and take over your DNA. And so, how do we fight that? Well, coronavirus is a group of viruses. Some of the seasonal flus is in that group of coronaviruses, and no vaccine can eliminate 100% of virus. Not right. The virus will mutate. It'll transform. What eliminates it, obviously, is emergency vaccines for a little bit, but long term is creating antibodies towards it. And eventually there's a percentage of the population that will get it, obviously stay in quarantine or at least minimize your social gathering. But I have an interesting theory of like multicultural cities like Toronto. Like if you look at the hardest place hits like Iran, it's not multicultural, it's homogenous, it's Iranians. You look at Wuhan or places in China, it's Han Chinese. It's not like you have Toronto, New York. I might be completely off the ball over here, but there's something in cross pollination where you're mixing all these different races and different ethnicities that maybe you get exposed to other types of viruses that your body initially creates antibodies that might make your immune system a little bit better prepared for this type of virus.
It could be. I'm not enough of an expert in this epidemiology stuff to know whether or not like herd immunity of other coronaviruses and other viruses and stuff would have impact a specific strain. I got to think that like that's probably not what's causing that. I think what's causing it is more like it just hasn't gotten here yet. That's all.
Well, no, but the thing with China though, there's a couple things, and this guy Code Snod, no, that's he put it in pretty well. There's not just hygiene. So, the meat market is fucked up. I don't know if you've ever gone there, but it's crazy. But it also the air pollution, the actual quality index of the cities they have there is so much worse than what you had in the Maritimes or what I had here.
That was the early theory though, back when it was just China, but now that it's spread to other countries.
No, but Italy's a good example where like, okay, so you have obviously age is really important. So predisposition of is age, predisposition of if you have any ailments, obesity is a risk factor. Obviously, if you have cardiovascular issues, that's a risk factor. So there's a checklist of risk factors that you have already.
But Italy is kind of like, for the genetics thing, it throws out the there was this thing that was going around that Asians have an ACE2 receptor or something that was like the virus was attaching itself to or something, and people were sort of, there was a paper put out, it wasn't peer reviewed, but they were speculating that this specific ACE2 receptor or something that Asians have was making them more susceptible, and like why weren't white people catching it? And then it spread to Iran and then Italy, and like it's going all over the world now. And I think Italy's a good example because they're not like crazy pollution. They're not like China in terms of.
What's the age group of people? They're like 65 years plus.
Well, Italy is just like a normal country, right? It's not like it's all old people.
They have one of the oldest like when you look at the demographic curvature they call. Yeah, theirs is like this.
But old people aren't like the only ones to get it. You know what I mean?
But they're the most predisposed for the mortality rate.
Right. It's worse for old people. And that shows in the case in Washington where it broke out in that old folks home, and the mortality rate was like 50 or 60% or something in the old folks homes. That spiked up the figures for the US because it was like
that's
going
skewed though too. It's like it's not just being old. Like you can be old and in shape and you take care of yourself, but like old folks home, I can only make assumptions.
It's going to skew it for sure. They're all like not in their prime.
Like I got a friend of a friend. He's 80 years old. He's ripped to shreds and like he's healthy as a fucking bull, man. Like he's not your fucking typical 80-year-old guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think though, like maybe you're right. Maybe it turns out to be something like that, but I don't think it's going to be like that at all. I think it's going to be it's just that it hasn't hit us here yet. And once it does, I think you're going to see it spreads just amongst multicultural cities as it does homogenized cities. The one thing that was interesting though was Hong Kong. There is definitely a difference in the way that people behave, because in Hong Kong, they kind of enacted quarantines. And I'll send you this picture. You can put it up on the on the screen.
While you send that, I'm gonna give some shout outs here to Charles Gibbons for this tip. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And also from Dan S. Stay safe out there, boys and girls. Thank you, Dan S. We got a lot of questions here coming in.
Keep going while I find this. I'll send it to you on Telegram.
Yeah, look right here. So this is from Steve Voss. Japan is an old homogenous demographic. So yeah, what's happening with Japan? Have they completely closed off? Do we have any data from Japan?
Well, Japan is where the Olympics are supposed to be.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we're coming up to the cancellation of the Olympics. I'm pretty sure it's going to get canceled. So
yeah.
with the Hong Kong thing,
I feel sorry for the fucking Olympians, man. They trained 4 fucking years for that.
Yeah, but it's probably just going to get postponed a year or something like that. I don't think it's going to be. But so with the Hong Kong thing, like a lot of the Asians in Hong Kong were like wearing masks and staying at home, and it was like, you know, you see all these pictures of like even Italy and all these places in Beijing and stuff where there's nobody on the streets.
Yeah.
And then my buddy sent me this tweet for his girlfriend was in Hong Kong, or maybe it was just I don't know if it was a girlfriend, that was a friend or something. And she took a picture of Hong Kong at night, and it's just full of white young people, like expats, not wearing masks, like a dance club. Yeah. So it just shows you the cultural shift that exists between
look at this.
Asians for wearing masks and white people here. Like we feel like we don't want to look stupid wearing a mask, so we don't want to feel racist wearing a mask.
Well, this is from Code Snod. Another factor could be societal. In India and China, there isn't a sense of personal space compared to the US. I've experienced this firsthand traveling those countries.
Right.
So proximity to people.
Can you put that picture up? Is that easy for you to do for people to see?
1 second.
Because it's kind of hilarious. Like the country's on quarantine basically, and you know the toilet paper is getting raided from the shelves, and all the Asians are staying at home, and then all the white expats are out at night.
I'll pull it up. Let me know if you guys see it. You guys see it?
I see it.
Yeah.
It's like all white people. Nobody's got a mask on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cultural, man. And not to mention, look at that. Look, if you follow my mouse, a beer. Who knows if that bartender or barkeep had something, and he or she opened up the bottle cap thing. I have a story a long time ago. I don't drink for 10 years, but one time I went to a bar and I was sober. I walked in there. Somebody opened up a drink for me. I drank it, and I knew somebody slipped some G in there. Like literally an hour later, I'm fucked beyond my mind. And I know what G is. I've done G before. I'm like, oh, someone spiked my drink, and it was meant for a girl for sure. So like, I don't trust anybody opening any alcohol for me.
Is that a Corona that guy has?
Where? You think so,
picture?
Huh?
Yeah,
looks like it.
So maybe he's trying to be funny. A round of Corona for all my friends.
That's right.
Well, didn't that one of the NBA players? He was he literally had coronavirus, and he was joking about it, and he was just saying like licking the microphone and like wiping his face on stuff, saying like I'm spreading coronavirus, and he actually has it. I'm pretty sure that's not fake news. I think that's real.
Yeah, but let's like move into. So it's going to take a while before we hit a tipping point of this. And I think it's going to be cyclical, like viruses go. They're seasonal too, so it's less in the summertime. There's really good studies where UVA, UVB radiation eliminates a lot of viruses, but it re-springs up again, or in the fall, in the winter time. This is why we have the flu. It's all seasonal, at least in the 4-season climate areas. And so there's going to be a cyclic nature to this, but that's something that we can control, something that, it's manageable. What I'm more interested in, what you were talking about earlier, when it comes to these economic second order and third order effects that's going to happen to us in the next year or two.
Yeah, man, I can see a couple of ways that it goes, and I was on my earlier Facebook video, I was basically saying to my friends and family and stuff that was watching that, which was like, you can take the approach one of two ways. You can think, one way you go this way and like the government's going to take care of me, or the other way you go this way and I'm going to take care of myself, right? And those are the
Yeah.
two opposite ends of the spectrum, that you can
Yeah.
either rely on the government to try to bail you out of this, or you can try to take precautions and bail yourself out and get ready for it yourself. What's that person saying?
The UK saying that 80% of people get corona. It's bullshit. The numbers don't suggest that from the numbers in China.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying earlier. China took draconian communist level measures, welding people into their buildings. I mean, this is not proven yet, but there's a lot of speculation about how they had their mortuaries or whatever, the crematories, burning bodies like 24/7 for like weeks. And there was like sulfur dioxide levels measured in the air that showed an increased activities and stuff. But that's kind of a bit on the conspiratorial side, but not even really. And it just showed that they were willing to do things that would not be acceptable here and that we can't do here. So if you just use math and you extrapolate this thing out to not taking any drastic measures, if you didn't enforce quarantines, if you didn't require people to stay home from work, if you didn't cancel school, if you didn't close flights and really get in the middle of this, like prevent the spread, using masks, washing hands a lot, getting tested, like doing lots of tests and sharing information with the citizens. If you don't do that stuff, then yeah, 80% of the people can be infected. It's just math.
Yeah. And so going
the only way to slow it down is to do all that stuff, or do at least some of them.
Yeah. So going back to the economic repercussions that you were saying earlier, what do you think we're going to see in the next 6 months or so?
6 months, I can see, like, if you so the advice that I was giving people was they're going to have to print tons of money. They have to. This is their last stance here, is to print their way out of this, just like they did in 2008 and just like they've been doing since 2008. And they started ramping it up in 2019 in September when the
this is MMT that we've been all talking about.
Yeah, this might be the full shift straight into MMT. I mean, it already is MMT, but MMT is more like for the people, where quantitative easing and Keynesianism or whatever, it's more like for the elites. And they've been doing Keynesianism and they've pretty much been bailing out the 0.1% elites for the last like many years. But now this is going to affect the plebs, right? So we're all going to be like pitchforks in hand, rioting once we realize that they've been plundering the nation's treasury for years to make themselves richer. And what do we get in return?
Taxes.
We get student loan debt. Yeah, high taxes. We don't even get our sports now. Like you know what I mean? So that's what keeps the masses distracted, is sports and Netflix and all that stuff. But now that people are going to start waking up to, like, wait a second, why are you getting bailed out? I got this massive student loan debt. I'm getting charged 20% interest on my credit card. Why are you getting 0% interest? You're the bank. You get to create the money and get it at 0%. You get loans at 0%, funded by me. But when I get a loan, I pay 20%. So people are going to start waking up to that, especially as they start getting hit with these economic repercussions of like travel slowing down, restaurants slowing down. It just slows everything to a grind. And worst case scenario, like China decides to not sell us any more medical equipment, and India decides not to send us any more medicine because they're dealing with shit on their end and they got to keep it for themselves. And we don't have manufacturing to be able to handle what we need. We rely on the supply chain from other countries. So worst case is another 50% drop in the stock market, and that starts to make it so that retirement accounts are teetering on bankruptcy, and like that affects people really badly. This is already one of the worst economic events in our history. Like, this is going to be written about for like economics classes and whatever in the future, just like 9/11 and 2008. And we're living in it like right now. So we don't know what's going to happen, but I can see it's going to be really bad in the next few months as people start to realize what's happened and it starts to affect their lives. So that's worst case I'm talking about, right? if best case is, and I mean, like, what that goes down the road into is just full on depression. So like, yeah, that's not going to be good. So in that case, you want to have guns and ammo, and you want to be prepared for that kind of stuff. But I'm not thinking that's where it's going to go, because I think they're going to do whatever they can to stop it, and that includes getting everybody in the world behind printing $10 trillion in the next year and a half, and just saying, like, listen, if we don't do this, the world's going to go into a depression. So we're going to do this. This is called modern monetary theory. This is the way it's going to work from now on. The $23 trillion of debt is never going to get paid back. It's just rebranding as national savings, and you get a small interest on it if you have bonds, or if you have, if you're a debt holder.
Oh, your audio cut off. We lost your audio there. They're cutting you off, bro. You're danger to society with your information. They're shutting us down. Bear with us, guys. We're having technical or I'm pretty sure his AirPods died of battery.
1 sec.
Yo, Brad, I think you just unmuted yourself.
All right.
Oh, there we go. We're back. All right, so let's continue this train of thought. What can then regular people do? So they're going to be printing trillions of fucking dollars. It's MMT. You and I really don't fucking benefit from it. It's not like I'm getting the Catalonian effect where I can just take that and buy whatever the fuck I want. So what do regular people do? Is there opportunity for anybody to kind of leverage what's going on?
Yeah. And can you hear me still? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think there's, in that scenario where they do the monetary easing for the people, then it won't be as bad as in the worst case scenario, right? Like, people are going to lobby their representatives once they realize how this big scam works, that we want some of this. This is like not fair that you're getting all this bailout. Where's our bailout? And that's when MMT is going to take over. And you'll see things like huge tax breaks and like just straight up airdrops like they did in Hong Kong, where we'll just get like thousands of dollars in money from the government.
Let's talk something here. The biggest issue, though, is, if you mentioned earlier, a lot of people are over leveraged on their mortgage. One, very few people can afford, at least in Toronto. Each market's different, but Toronto, the cheapest house is $1 million, and the house.
Oh yeah, that's going to hurt people.
It's a piece of shit for $1 million. You got to put 20% down if you're a first-time home buyer, so that's $200,000. And at 20%, your mortgage is still $6,000-$7,000 a month on the mortgage, give or take. So it's like, for me, I'm looking at like people. It's like a repeat. It's probably going to happen like in the 1989, 1991, 1992. Even though it won't be interest rates, but people got liquidated in Canada in real estate.
Well, a lot of people nowadays grew up in an environment where the Fed bails everything out, and the Fed's always coming to the rescue. And like, there's this whole like movement, the FIRE movement among millennials and Gen Z right now, where it's just like, what is it? Financial independence, retire early.
By 30.
Yeah. So a lot of people are doing Airbnb arbitrage and like just hustling, like buying stocks and all that stuff. So I think those days are now shook. Like, people are realizing, wow, that's not this. This is a black swan.
Yeah.
So
all the people in Robinhood.
Yeah. Why is my Robinhood working?
Like, you should go on fucking. If anybody wants to go on a crazy ass reading down the rabbit hole, Alice in Wonderland, go to fucking Wall Street Bets on Reddit.
Are people just freaking out?
No, man, that place is for the most craziest. Literally, the purpose of Wall Street Bets is how stupid can you make a bet. It's called YOLO.
Okay.
and you're not allowed to make rational bets. And they're all on Robinhood, and they move markets. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that are putting options and puts and calls on Robinhood from this one fucking Reddit sub channel.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Those days are maybe not over, but like for now, this is a real thing that's it's ruining some people that are over leveraged. And
Some people who's not over leveraged.
well,
Who
yeah.
wait. Who the fuck has 20,000? Who the fuck has 20% to put down on $1 million? Regular people. Who's walking around $200,000 in cash?
Yeah, the average person in Canada is over leveraged in terms of their debt by a factor of like 1.7. So every dollar you make, you owe $1.70 in debt.
See?
So they can't people just don't have in general much extra money. They don't have a cushion. They're like a couple of paychecks away from bankruptcy or are on the streets, right? So that's why the CDC and the Canada Health and all that is trying to spread the message of don't panic, because they know how precarious this is. But and that's why they're going to have to bail everybody out and try to do like UBI style money airdrops right into your bank account, like pay for healthcare expenses in the US. They're just going to have to. Otherwise, this is going to be depression, and nobody wants to see that. So this might be the situation that happens where, yeah, maybe all student loan debt gets forgiven. Maybe.
Okay, I need to take on as much debt right now in this short time as possible.
That's a Wall Street bet.
The Wall Street bet. It's like I'm gonna go through credit cards, cash everything out, and be like, oh.
So that's what I see is like, I told you what the worst case scenario was. The best case scenario, I can see credit card companies tripling your credit, giving you 0% interest for 2 years. Just go wild, buy whatever you need, like government airdropping money into your bank account, because people have to stay home, and if they don't, it's just nuts what can happen. It can get like saturation of the whole public, and then the hospitals get overrun.
But I think in the hot markets where there's real estate, like San Fran, Toronto, Vancouver,
the effects are going to be real bad, because people are not going to be able to afford those crazy high mortgages anymore. $1 million for a house is just absurd. If you got $1 million house right now in Toronto,
it's a piece of shit too. I'm not talking. It's a piece of shit house for $1 million.
Right. Like that's the time. This is the time. You got to take action. If you don't, what are you going to lose? You got nothing to lose, but except for everything right now. If you don't take action, sell the house, like get out of it. I mean, I shouldn't be giving financial advice, right? But if look at this as a risk perspective. If this blows over and you sold your $1 million house, who cares, really? Like you got a lot of money out of it, probably, if you've been in it for a while. I'm specifically talking about people who've been in their houses for a long time and they've seen it grow to like insane numbers, and they're still sitting on it thinking like, oh, I can't sell now. Listen, take your profits and just downsize and like wait for this to blow over, because this is going to be a huge economic impact unless the best case scenario happens. And then if you did sell your house and you downsized your debt and all that stuff, and then it turns out this wasn't a big deal, well, you didn't lose much. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the bad side of this. If you take action now and prepare yourselves for the worst. If you prepare for the worst, get your debt lower, sell any assets that aren't really, if you're over leveraged, like take care of that. Geez, I mean, like, to me, the risk of not doing that is worse than you're wrong and, this blows over. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been preaching this forever. Why are you going to buy a house with 5% down?
Yeah, and like in terms of other assets, like if this monetary theory happens, right, and 10 trillion gets printed over the next year or two, then and the markets kind of recover a little bit, and maybe there's just a recession rather than a depression, the effect of printing all that money is what makes valuable assets eventually be worth something. So I'm not talking about the $1 million piece of shit semi in Toronto. I'm talking about like real undervalued or appropriately valued land in houses, even in markets that aren't as crazy as Toronto, Vancouver, and all that. Gold and Bitcoin. Like I'm still very long-term bullish on Bitcoin. I've always said that.
Let me pull it up right here. So this is where we're looking up. This is the history of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I've been in Bitcoin for a long time, and I've sat through. This will be number 4, I guess. Bitcoin crashes.
Well, here we got the 4th. I don't consider that a crash. And we got the 3rd one here.
Yeah, it was a big long bear market.
Then would this one would be your 2nd?
Well, you're on the wrong chart there.
Which chart you want me to pull up?
You got to go back to 2011.
Oh, 1 second.
So the first one happened in 2012. It went from $30 down to $2. And then
oh shit,
it's probably the wrong data. If you go to CoinMarketCap, I think they have
CoinMarketCap.
Yeah.
All 2000 and what? 13.
Probably goes back to, was it go back to 13? Yeah. So there was, in 2011, there was a crash, and you barely see those. In 2011, 2014, at the beginning of 14, there was a big crash too, from
right here.
$1,100 down to like a low of 2, I think.
Yeah, pull it up right here.
So on this chart, you can't even see it, right? So I think in the long term, right now is going to look like what you just had on the screen. It's just going to be a blip. You won't even notice it. When Bitcoin's $100,000 per coin, you won't notice
here
the
it is,
drop.
2013. There we go. See that?
Yeah, there you go. Boom. That was a crazy drop. Yeah. And I sat through that. I didn't sell any. I sat through the one that happened in 2012 earlier before that, went from 30 to 2, and that was really painful. I didn't, well, I did sell a bunch then, actually, because I was like, oh.
You trader, bro. You're not hodling? What the fuck?
Well, that was like, I just got into Bitcoin back then.
I'm just fucking pulling it.
What do you call it? You calling me not a hodler? No, but listen, I think Bitcoin is a store of value. That's one of its theses, right? Like, I think it is a store of value long term, but it's not a hedge against a freaking global pandemic, black swan. And I've been saying that for a little while now, that I think since 2017, when we got more participants in the market that were in like stock trading and institutional investors and people like Wall Street bet folks, right? As they started to come in that mass adoption cycle in 2017, it changed the profile of the investor of Bitcoin from hodler to like risky, sort of risk on traditional guys who's got exposure to the stock markets and gold and other things, and bonds, I mean, because where before it was mostly gold investors and like early adopter technologists and anarchists and stuff who were just holding this thing and didn't even give a shit about securities and equities and all that. So when the stock markets were moving around before, it was just like, it's not affecting us. We're not on that ocean. We're on the other ocean, on the other side of the world. But now everybody's kind of like in all these markets together, and Bitcoiners even have sold some and gotten into stocks and gotten into equities and bonds or whatever. And as these things crash, like, you just go to cash, you just move to cash because you're thinking about buying toilet paper, not like store value long term. But for people that don't have any allocation yet, I think you should still try to get 5% of your net worth in Bitcoin. That's the safe number that I always tell people. It's an amount that's like, if you lose it all, it's 5% of your net worth. It's not going to really affect you long term, right? It's going to suck. It's going to be a shit situation if you lose 5%. But if it goes up 100x, like I think it will over the next 10 years, well, now that it's so low, 200x over the next 2 years, and it reaches $1 million of Bitcoin because it's a global reserve currency like gold, then I think that's a life-changing type of return. And I think it's definitely still possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not trying to give financial advice like, go do this right now. The best advice is slowly buy on dips like we're seeing right now. These are like great opportunities to buy a little bit. If 5% is too much for you, just do 2%. You don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a 0.05 of a Bitcoin, a 0.00001 of a Bitcoin. So yeah, just get some allocation to Bitcoin, because eventually, as the printers go on, things like gold and Bitcoin that are not that are scarce assets that can't be printed at will retain value over the long term. And long term, Bitcoin benefits from this. But in the short term, everybody's exposed to the stock markets. The stock markets are getting destroyed, and everybody's selling everything that they have. Everything's getting wrecked. Like oil traded like a shitcoin this week because Russia and Saudi Arabia got into a fight over the, reducing production, and Russia said, no, we're not participating in this OPEC plus thing. So you can do what you want, but we're going to keep pouring oil into the markets. And, so now there's a price war in oil. It went down 30% in a day. And they said that they can handle this for 10 years or something like that.
Yeah. But for me, I'm more, you mentioned 5% of your net worth. I'm more
100%. Just kidding.
I'm more exposed than 5, but actually no. I lost all my crypto. I fell in a boating accident.
Right, I remember. I was there.
Yeah, you were there. I know. I fell overboard, and unfortunately, I carried my keys, and that's it. But I'm more interested in I don't even think so. People have any disposable income to invest. That's what I'm fearful of. You mentioned earlier, people 2 paychecks away from being insolvent.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental that's how fucked up our society is right now.
Right.
The actual purchasing power of your dollar is moot, non-existent.
Well, I agree with you there, and I think that's definitely true, but people have money and people just spend it on things. So people do have the ability to get exposure to Bitcoin now. And this is like a generational trade. This is something that the boomers had their generational trade where they got a 20x. I think, if it was real estate, then if you got into real estate back then, or even the stock markets, you made so much money.
Let's see my parents
Gen X or tech stocks. If you had got in the stock market around 2000 and you rode that thing up all the way to now, you had a 20x or so. What do millennials and Gen Z have? Well, we have Bitcoin.
Crypto. Yeah.
So I think even if you put a small amount, this could be Tom Lee from Fundstrat originally turned me onto this theory. It could be the generational trade for millennials and Gen X. And there's a $60 trillion wealth transfer happening between boomers in the next 5-10 years to Gen X and millennials. So what are we going to likely see them put that into? Probably a little bit into Bitcoin. After all this panic subsides, it may not be 60 trillion anymore because the markets are tanking, but it's going to be a lot of significant value being transferred down to millennials and Gen X. So I still think there's lots of legs in Bitcoin. This is just a black swan panic event, and Bitcoin is going to tank just like everything else is going to tank in that type of an event.
Yeah, I think people also don't really appreciate the true beauty of Bitcoin, and it's not the monetary value nor the narrative of store of value. It's a censorship resistance and the portability. That's the true fundamental value prop. So stocks, all right, sorry boys, breakers off. No one's trading shit. You know what I mean? Gold, we're shutting it down. Oh, sorry, you don't have access to your gold. No, so everything's censored. Everything's controlled on that side of the fence.
Yeah.
Now, on this side of the fence is, hey, I can write on a piece of paper my seed phrase, and yeah, my value may drop. I can fucking go anywhere with that and pretty much trade 24/7. Even if all the centralized exchanges go down, we have DEXs, even though they suck, they're slowly getting better. We're going to have 24/7 liquidity. Or fuck the DEXs. You go to the old school way, the number one way, localbitcoins.com.
Well, localbitcoins.com I wouldn't recommend anymore because they're like a honeypot. But I get what you're saying. I think there's properties that Bitcoin has that no other asset has, and that's what makes it unique, and that's what makes it different than anything else that's out there, and I still believe in it. So I still think maybe 3 years or so we'd see $100,000 Bitcoin, and 10 years $1 million Bitcoin. That's still my thesis. Just because a global pandemic happened doesn't mean I think, oh well, I guess in a world of coronavirus, Bitcoin doesn't have any value anymore. It's just that, like, people are panicking because there's a lot of money being lost. This is like a serious economic event that's going to be written about and studied. Let's just like the 2008
Yeah, but
collapse.
the people panicking. Okay, let's be honest here. The people that own stock, 95% of regular Jane and Joe that work on 9 to 5 do not own any stock.
No, not really. But starting, like, there started to be a lot of speculation on these retail sites, like the one that went down. What's it called again?
Robinhood.
Robinhood. Yeah, there started
Yeah,
to be
but
tons
these are
of
millennials, man. You look at the age group; they're all millennials on there.
right. Yeah, you're talking
So
about like Gen X and Boomers and stuff.
Gen X, Boomers, like even I'm 85. I'm not really. We're like a weird thing. I don't consider myself like a millennial. Like I grew up without the internet. I didn't have social media.
Right.
And I was the last year before all that
Yeah.
craziness
Yeah.
came.
The average person that's like doesn't really have that much exposure to stocks, and that's kind of like what I was saying earlier in the interview, that I don't think it's impacted people how bad this crash is, because they don't have exposure to it via direct equities. They have exposure to it via their retirement accounts, the dollar, and
Employment.
employment. So when that starts to shake, and that's the second order effect of this crash, is it's going to cause not just the crash, but the requirement of stopping coronavirus from spreading in your area is going to be really detrimental to the local economy and the provincial economy and the global economy. So people will feel it eventually, even if they don't have stocks right now.
Pensions hurt my head, man. You trust your money to some Joe Schmo that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and you get wiped out like they got wiped out in 08.
Yeah, there's a lot of pension plans now that have just been exposed to be pretty much insolvent. Like there's no way they can get the money that's required to meet what they've promised people.
That's ridiculous.
A few of them have gone insolvent. I need to learn more about that though, because that's the big thing that I'm kind of got a bit of a blind spot on. I mean, I'm aware of it, but I do need to. Real Vision has some good videos on that. I got to go watch up some more videos and see like what's the real situation there with the pension plans. How are they bankrupt? Because that's a huge thing.
How they bankrupt? Well, let's use Occam's razor here. They take money from all their constituents. You have a fiduciary group. They put money in horrible asset allocations, different things, stocks, everywhere. Like, and they're just bad allocating money, and that's it. Their money's not liquid, and they get fucked.
Right.
That's it.
I think it's like probably also to do with the interest rates, because they can't they have to get a certain interest rate in order to meet their obligations. I think it's like 7 or 8% or something like that, because they're taking from the fund to pay people's retirements actively, right? And yet they've promised like a whole nother generation or two that they're going to get this when they retire. So everybody's got to pay in. So they have to get a certain percentage return in order to meet that. Armando. Canada is bankrupt since years ago. Well, now it's going to be, this is going to hurt people, because how you can't get a 6 or 7, even if you get a 6 or 7% yearly return on what was in the retirement money, but the market's down 40%. Like that's going to take a while to come back from. What do you think's going to happen, man? Like do you think it's going to be the positive scenario I laid out, where we just peacefully switch to MMT without a lot of rioting and pitchforks and without like a lot of hurt? Or
I'll speak for Canada. I don't think so. We're going to see rioting in Canada. I think a lot of people will be affected though from employment. I already see that happening. I think people are going to get fucked in real estate. I had a good friend of mine. He runs massive real estate funds, and he has a bunch of commercial units here in Toronto. And we were talking on the phone earlier, and like the bottom line, he sees the market in Toronto could slow down by 20% in the next year or so, if people can't hold up their mortgages, depending on what happens with this recession. That's how like over leveraged people are.
Oh yeah, yeah. But do you think that like I think it's going to take about 3 to 6 months before it ripples into the real estate markets? Do you think
That's
it's
what he
going to be
said.
quicker?
No, no,
Or
he said no, no. That's exactly what he said.
okay,
Yeah.
they just canceled minor hockey in
Mm,
Ontario. Yeah,
really?
so that's another example of how this is going to affect people.
Well,
A
look
lot
at all
of
these people. Okay,
people,
listen. NBA. You're talking about the fucking ACC. You're talking about what's happening with baseball. They're going to postpone it, but still, that's the Sky Dome.
yeah,
You're talking about all these stadiums. I'm assuming all these other sports too. These are minor league sports. You got people there who work there, who are cashiers, who are cleaning there, who are doing security there, who are bartenders there. Their livelihood fucking depends on this. And now a whole season they don't have any fucking work,
yeah, it's crazy.
right? And
Owing,
that's a ripple effect. People need taxis to get there. People need Ubers to get there. Then you have food around there. The people like there's a ripple effect. Like when people go out and congregate, that's what stimulates the economy.
yeah, that's Keynesianism by definition, right? Is like you got to go out and stimulate the economy, so we'll just like force it or seed it with.
Oh, with the inflation, yeah.
So man, it's tough to know what's going to happen, but I guess what are you going to do to prepare yourself? Like if anybody's listening wondering like how do I prepare myself? I think you should get out of stocks and stuff. Like if you're not yet, your retirement accounts, you got a mutual fund at the bank or something like that. It's not too late to get out. You can get go in there tomorrow right away, and while you're there, take some money out of the cashier, because if this does hit bad, they're probably going to put restrictions on how much you can take out of the ATM. So just do some basic things to prepare yourself both financially and mentally and physically. Start
Mm-hmm.
shoring up your immune system, take some vitamin C, use the sauna if you got one, or if you have access to, well, if you have access to a public sauna, maybe don't use that one.
Yeah. Drink some nice kombucha.
Drink some booch, get your immune system up. I mean, if you catch coronavirus, it's not like scientifically proven that the vitamin C you're taking is gonna prevent it from getting worse, but like
Well, there is actually studies for vitamin C in the group of
I
coronaviruses,
did
and
see some papers
I
on
I published that
coronavirus. Yeah.
and quercetin.
So it's like, but again, it's just like the housing thing. It's just like, why not do it, right? Like just what's the risk? There's no
Or you're talking about
risk
like
doing it.
Pascal's wager with God. Just believe in God in case when you die. Hey, there you go. Your
That's a
bet's
good
good.
one. Pascal's wager with coronavirus.
Yeah, but in general, your immune system should be good. Like it should be general practice.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen listening out there, you should not have a compromised immune system unless you have some genetic disorder, and Brad knows much more about this than I do. But take fucking care of yourself, like for fuck's sakes.
take care of yourself, and like now's the time, if any, to try like an intermittent fasting or keto diet or something like that will help your immune system and help you feel better. And
Yep.
I mean, why not? You also save some money. You'll only be eating 2 meals a day instead of 3.
Do the warrior diet, 1 meal a day. I'm on the 1 meal a day these days. I'm eating around like 4 o'clock, like a gigantic fucking meal.
Save the money you would have spent on that other meal and buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. So I had an app idea that I wanted to do, but it's too big of a job. I'm like, fuck it. But like Lolly has a Bitcoin back rewards, like using the Chrome plugin online.
Mhm.
I want a fintech app like that. I do more buying offline than I do online.
Right, like for your general everyday purchases.
Coffee. I buy coffee every day. I
Yeah.
like to go to coffee shop, buy coffee. I swing by and I buy like some vegetables from my local organic store. So I want to like earn some Bitcoin for that.
That's a good plan, man. But this is very a very difficult time for people. Like even myself trying to process the extreme drops that we're seeing right now. I'm reacting to it, but like because I've been in Bitcoin so long and have seen such drastic drops in Bitcoin in my life, I feel like I've had an investor's full lifetime of investing in like 3 or 4 years. Like I've started from nothing and I went up and then I had a major crash and then I kept at it and I kept investing and I went way up and I had a major crash and then I had life-changing returns and then I lost most of it because of the crash and then it came back up. So like that's what happens if you've been investing in the S&P since like you're a child or since you're a teenager or a young adult until you get to like your 70s and you can retire. you've had a lifetime of investment. And I feel like I've had that in just the last few years. So just it's I know it's tough for people. So seek help. Like if you're going through this the first time, seek help from people. Just like talk to people who've been through this before, because it's people start to think about like suicide and stuff when losses get threaten your life. So, talk to someone else who's lost. Talk to a Bitcoiner. We understand how you feel.
Bro, I've lost too much, man. Fuck me.
What's this guy saying? Dude, I'm walking around.
So first of all, this is a shout out to the Tannel channel. Dude, I'm walking around Tallinn, Estonia today. Did shopping. Took a bus ride. It feels like I'm at the beginning of some zombie apocalypse movie. People coughing left and right and falling. What the fuck?
Is it hitting Estonia right now?
I don't know, man. I should call my cousins up. They're in Eastern Europe. I'll talk to them.
Jeez.
I don't know if it's true or not, but okay. That's crazy, man.
Well, I don't know what else to say, man. I'm looking at the price of Bitcoin right now, and I think it's dropping even more.
It is, man. It's right now.
It's at 5K right now, but the futures is crazy. The Bitcoin futures for tomorrow.
What are they at?
I think it went down to 3,000 or something like that.
Well, that's the bottom they were calling.
But the spot, the futures isn't as big of a deal. And I haven't confirmed that. That's just someone texted that to me.
3,800. That would be the bottom they call it for.
Yeah. So, like, I would buy that level. Honestly, there's the only thing that would make Bitcoin go to zero is the aliens come down and they just have a technology that shows us Bitcoin will never work and like break everything, break encryption, give us free electricity, give us the cure.
Yeah, at that point, there's no money, man.
There's no money in it. It's Star Trek at that point, right?
If you solve the problem of energy and you get something kind of like what's it called? Cold fusion. So nuclear fission. So we get cold fusion, and you get some replicators, and you have like unlimited energy.
You don't need Bitcoin then.
What the fuck you need money for?
Exactly. That's when scarcity becomes not a factor anymore. You don't need scarcity, assets that have scarcity because everything's abundant. So, so until that happens, or until like, even if there was like a quantum breakthrough and like North Korea or something somehow got like a quantum breakthrough before anyone else and starts attacking all of the financial security on the internet, and then like Bitcoin was at risk of being broken, we would fork, we would change the algorithm, we would find a way to solve that. Yeah, that would be a really crazy drop in the price, but it's like it's going to come back in my eyes. So if it drops to $3,000, I'm a buyer there. I just think long term, like that's just we went back a few years, just like the stock market is right now. We went back a few years. It's going to keep going back and regressing back to a price in a crash like this, where eventually buying the dip will have been a smart idea. I don't think this is the end of civilization or the end of the stock market or the end of companies or whatever, right? So just be conservative. Don't try to time it slow. Like use trend following. Wait for the trend to reverse before you start going back in. Don't try to make an all-in bet. Like that's the worst thing you can do, because if you're wrong, you like lose a lot. If you win a lot, that's great, but like just try to like read books like about investing. There's the Reminiscences of a Stock Operator is a great book I recommend people read.
I would rewind, man. I would tell people figure out a way how to earn more cash potential. That's a problem.
For sure, because you're right. Lots of people don't even have that position.
You need. I always tell people figure out. Okay, people like to make the jump. I want to earn then. People always talk about I want to earn like 6 figures a year. Okay, cool. Where are you at right now? How do we get you there? Like what's the blueprint to get you there? Okay, you're earning that now. Cool. You're not just gonna go from 6 figures to earning $500,000 a year in cash. How the fuck are you gonna do that? There's steps necessary. What are you gonna do? Are you running a business, or like what kind of hustle are you running? What skills do you have? How the fuck do you get there? Once you have cash flow coming in, which takes skills, which takes networks, which takes connections, and takes everything combined together to well, I'll say one word: adding value to people. Once you have add value, you get cash. Once you add value to people, then we can figure out, okay, what do you do now with the cash flow that you have?
I think like at that point, right, where someone is like trying to figure out how do I even make money to then be able to invest or like think about my future, I think about where I was before I was comfortable financially. Like obviously the price of Bitcoin's dropping quite a bit, so I'm not as comfortable as I was last night. But I was hedged well enough. I mean, I started to realize that I should be not putting all my eggs in one basket, and I should have allocations to real estate, to cash, to a little bit of the stock market, and do some like business investing. So
Mhm.
before that, when I was like trying to hustle, I
Yeah.
think the best thing that I would do was listen to podcasts like the Tim Ferriss podcast, and read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and things like The Secret on mindset, right? And how to
Right.
attract
Yeah.
things in your life, do vision boards, goal setting. One of the really good books that prepared me for this type of a scenario was Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game.
Mm.
And then his other one, Unshakable. So like Unshakable is a more updated version. I mean, those types of books for somebody that's like new to figuring out how to invest or trying to make money, I would suggest those resources. Tim Ferriss podcast, your podcast, like Richard Cooper was on here before. He's a good guy to listen to for mindset. I don't agree with some of the things he has on the red pill stuff, but
Red pill, blue pill. Let's do this.
I like the Matrix red pill. But like he's a smart guy. He's made money. He's teach you
Oh, yeah,
confidence.
he's great,
for a
man. He's
guy,
fucking
you know?
awesome.
For Andrew well, what the heck's the name? He has a thing where he interviews successful entrepreneurs. Andrew,
What's the podcast called?
I can't remember it anymore. It's been years, but it was really cool. It was like interviews of successful CEOs and stuff that had exited their business or whatever.
Okay. Don't know. I don't
Noah
listen to many
Kagan was
podcasts.
another
I
guy.
got like I listened to 3 podcasts. That's it. I can't
Andrew
even think.
Warner. His name was
Oh,
Andrew
Warner.
Warner.
Yeah, Andrew Warner. Mixergy.
Mixergy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that stuff like save how to like figure out what to do to make money. So just immerse yourself in that type of education and listening so that you can learn how to make money. And then also at the same time, because before I had enough money to invest, I thought like this is going to be my plan. When I get enough money to invest, I'm going to be ready. So I think there's a saying, it might be a religious saying, but it's like if you're not ready for the harvest won't come, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you should always be ready for the harvest, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
that's where like seeding your mind with good information and financial information and, you know, stuff always helps.
Cool, man. I think we'll leave it at that. And if people are interested in following you, man, what's the best resource?
I've got the Magic Internet Money Podcast, so people can just Google that, Magic Internet Money Podcasts with Brad Mills, or catch me on Cash Me Outside. How about that? You can you can get me on Twitter at Brad Mills Can, or you can get me on Xbox Live, which I'm probably going to be doing a lot of lately because Warzone was just released in the Battle Royale game. It's really fun, and I need a distraction from this crazy market, so I'm going to play some video games now and then. So hit me up on Twitter at Brad Mills Can and send me your Xbox Live gamer tag.
There you go. All right, Brad. Thanks, brother.
And be good, everybody.
Peace.